Okay, we're going to call our meeting to order. The first thing on the agenda is a manager's oath. I believe that's me.
Yep.
And who
I
gets to
think
administrate
Louis, pardon, Pat?
it? You just want to read it, or usually we have,
Yeah, I think Louis will lead
Louis.
you through it here.
yeah.
Manager Preiner, if you would stand and raise your right hand and repeat after me.
Okay.
I, Patricia L. Preiner, do solemnly swear
I, Patricia L. Preiner, do solemnly swear
that I will support the constitutions
that I will support the constitutions
of the United States and the state of Minnesota,
of the United States and the state of Minnesota,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of manager of the Rice Creek Watershed District
of the office of manager of the Rice Creek Watershed District
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations. In 34 years of practice, this is the very first oath I've administered electronically.
We're in a new age. So thank you. And we'll move.
Congratulations, Pat.
Thank you. Okay, next thing we'll do is roll call. It'll have to be by vote. Manager Waller,
Yes, present.
Manager Wynant,
Here.
Manager Bradley,
Here.
Manager Wagaman,
Here.
and Manager Preiner here. And we'll go to setting the agenda. Anybody have anything to change on the agenda today?
Staff have no changes.
The only thing I would like to do, if it's okay with the board, is to take out number 20-022 for a separate vote. So we'll do that before we do the consent agenda. Okay, anybody else? I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam President, I move to approve the agenda with the modification of handling 20-022 separately.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Well, we got to go roll call. Waller,
Yes.
Manager Wynant,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wagaman,
Yes.
and Manager Preiner, yes. Okay, so we move forward to the approval of the minutes.
Madam President, I move to approve the May 26, 2020 workshop minutes.
This
Bradley
amendment,
seconds it.
I second it.
Okay, Bradley seconds it. Roll call. Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Wynant,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wagaman,
Yes.
and Manager Preiner, yes. Motion passes.
Okay, and Madam President, I move to approve the May 27th, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
I would second that. This is Manager Wynant.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a roll call vote. Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Wynant,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wagaman,
Yes.
and Manager Preiner, yes. Now we're going to move on to application 20-022. And that's to approve the Caprock 6 items. I need a motion. For Lexington Meadows LLC.
Madam President, I move that we Caprock permit 20-022 in accordance with the staff report.
I would second that. This is
We
Manager.
have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Madam President, what was the purpose of pulling it out? There's no discussion.
I pulled it out because I could have, I don't know for sure. They were talking, including some wetland credits that I have available, but they haven't confirmed anything. So I don't want to have any problems with that.
Oh, I see. You want to abstain. All right.
Yep. Okay, we'll call for a vote. Waller,
Yes.
Wynant,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wagaman,
Yes.
and Manager Preiner abstain. Okay, we'll go then to consent agenda for the 20-032, 20-033, and 20-034. 053. I'll need a motion.
You want to ask if there are any questions or anything?
Yeah, well, we can do a motion, then there'd be questions
Okay,
after that.
Sure. Madam President, I would like to move that we conditionally approve any receipt of changes. The permits 20-032, 20-033, 20-053 in accordance with the engineer's report dated June 3rd, 2020.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that. This is Manager Wynett.
Okay, we have a motion and a second and discussion. Go ahead.
President Briner, Board of Managers, I'd like to bring up 1 point, permit application 20-053. That is within the city of Lauderdale in Ramsey County. It is within our jurisdictional boundary, but it does drain to an MWMO. And I guess just for a little bit further clarification, I guess I'd ask for Chris Arness to kind of jump in. We had a brief discussion that there would be a examination of the adjoining watershed management organizations with our boundary for a potential boundary. I don't know if that's supposed to occur this year anymore.
Is now joining.
Okay,
Madam President, if I may. Patrick brings up a good point there. And this has been kind of a little bit of a reoccurring theme that you've heard that in several locations in the district, the boundary does not necessarily follow the watershed area that actually goes to the district. And this is another one of those examples. And particularly in Ramsey County, we've recently identified a number of these areas. The district has not engaged upon a study yet to identify where all of the areas that are inconsistent within Ramsey County. As a reminder, you've already undertaken that process in Washington County and completed that review and are in the middle of a review in Anoka County. It is envisioned in your watershed plan to eventually complete a similar process in Ramsey County. So we just wanted to bring up and note that as a reminder that we have been seeing these pop up related to permits. It does create complexities within the permit process to deal with it. And certainly from a staff perspective, we feel that the public is best served, if we're, doing permitting decisions within properties that are in alignment with the district watershed.
President Preiner, just a point of clarification, all real good, Chris and Patrick. So no concerns with the permit itself. We have a practical method, if you will, to get through these and serve the citizens and landowners who want to do development. But to the issue, yes, correcting our boundary is always important. So two separate things. But.
okay, but didn't we budget to start correcting some boundaries?
Yes, we most indeed did, Pat. Board, as Chris noted, we're undertaking that right now with Anoka County, and we'll work through that. We are holding Ramsey County in reserve, if you will. At some point during the year, you're going to have to make a decision whether you want to execute and proceed with expenditure there, or maybe hold on that. But this illustrates how it comes into play for the district.
Okay.
So, Madam President,
Yes.
so as we find a few of these, not often now. I mean, there might be a couple more in Anoka or a couple here or there once in a while in Ramsey. Is it possible once the boundary is completed and readjusted correctly that whatever organization takes over this geographical location, that we would share with them this information for their records?
President Preiner, Board of Manager, yep. Manager Waller, yes, these do come up once in a while. What I would first say is sometimes you don't know definitively until you look. And so here, when these come up, we're looking at a specific parcel and which way the waters flow. And so that is, when we look at the boundary as a whole, we're examining each parcel along that boundary, and we do engage the neighbors. And the neighbors or entities, neighboring watersheds or the lack of them, we certainly share the information with. It's actually an open dialogue with them for the best information that we both have available, so we don't incur any undue cost. Did I cover it? I believe I did.
Well, what I wanted to point out was that we're going to do this permit, that's fine, and then put a tag on it so that when the boundary is determined, and if this stays on the Rice Creek side, wonderful. If it stays on the neighbor watershed, then the file could be shared with them. And hopefully that if they have an adjustment where they have given a permit to something that was on their side of the line at the time and now becomes on Rice Creek side of the line, that they would reciprocate and share with us that background information for our future records.
Most definitely.
That's what I was getting to.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments?
So I have a question just to clarify again. So this is in the actual official boundary of Rice Creek, but it's in our neighboring watershed. It isn't as though we're directing water from the Rice Creek watershed to the other watershed.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
Yep. And so, and Patrick can help me, I believe here, we look to the landowner, the applicant, in that neighboring entity, basically that we all agree or see the issue at hand, and then just consent to the best way to handle it. It's in Rice Creek boundary, and so we are regulating here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any further discussion? Roll call would be Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Winant,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wageman,
Yes.
and Manager Priner, yes. Okay, we'll move on. Open mic, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to any issue that's on the agenda or not? I see there might be a couple out there. Anybody like to speak?
President Reiner, those individuals may or may not be for what your next agenda item, but certainly they're open.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hearing none, we can come back to that. So we'll go to the items requiring board action. Nick?
Yes, President Preiner, I'm going to hand this off to Kyle from our office. This is a past cost share project with the city of Mounds View, and we've run into a couple of challenges, but through an extension, I think that can be addressed. Kyle?
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Madam President, members of the board, you've seen this come up a couple of times in the past. We are looking for board action on a second amendment, which would be an extension to an existing cost share agreement with the city of Mounds View. This is for the Lambert Avenue storm sewer extension. Brief history, we had allocated just over $19,000 to this project back in 2016. And project since that time was constructed. The city had constructed a storm sewer extension, eliminating a sediment loading erosion spot that drained to Rice Creek. And but it was constructed across private property. It's owned by Mr. Tom Fields. And part of the condition of that grant was the conveyance of an easement from Mr. Fields to the city of Mounds View over the new pipe alignment. And at this time, that's what's been holding up closing out this grant is the city obtaining that easement. So we have already paid half of the cost share funds to the city back in 2017. We are currently in a position of withholding that final payment. It's about $9,600 until that easement is conveyed. We had thought that was going to be done the very end of last year or early 2020. And the existing cost share agreement, First Amendment, the cost share agreement has expired as of December 31st, 2019. Just in the interest of keeping things moving along, we thought that was going to be taken care of very shortly after that expiration. So we just kind of did let that slide. It has taken some more time. And recent communication with City of Mounds View staff, Niall Zickman, who I believe is on the meeting here today, if he has any more comments he'd like to add, indicates that Mr. Fields has again been responsive again, and they are working toward recording that easement. It has to do with a lot split subdivision of that property that he is attempting to undertake as well. So several moving parts that really aren't necessarily in our control, but we're again trying to be a good partner and feel at this it's time we need to get that extension approved formally so that the paperwork is square, and we're hoping to just run that through December 31st, 2020. Mr. Zickman has indicated they're hopeful that it will be done by August. So that's what we're asking the board, is just to approve amendment number 2 to that cost share agreement, extending the agreement to December 31st, 2020. With that, again, I can take any questions, and I believe Niall is on the video conference as well.
Any questions
Madam
for
President,
Kyle? Go ahead.
This is Manager Wynant. I would move to amend the 2016 Stormwater Program Cost Share Agreement between the Rice Creek Watershed District and the City of Mounds View by changing its expiration date to December 30th.
Okay.
Manager Bradley seconds that.
So we have a motion and a second. Any comments from anyone?
Madam
If not,
Chair.
we'll go
Good
ahead.
to have you online, Niall.
Niall Zickman, City Administrator, City of Mounds View, just expressing our appreciation to getting the grant. We have no excuse on why we didn't get the easement before the work was done. It was before my time, before the Public Works. It's vexed me since I've started. We won't be asking for another extension. We've made it very clear to Mr. Fields, who seems to literally and genuinely be the victim of some bad luck. He does have some things that just were beyond his control. Engineering firm that is no longer able to complete the project, and so now he's switching engineering firms to get the final survey, to get the plat done. But I always try and find the good in everything, and at the end of the day, getting rid of that ditch was good for the watershed, good for the city, good for Mr. Field. So however it turns out on who has to pay, I think we can all take some satisfaction we got that done. But hopefully he will get it done here this August, and we'll sign that easement, and he's indicated all of that. So with that, unless you have any questions, again, just thank you for the grants, thank you for the patience, and thank you for the extension.
Well, thank you for being online today. And with that, if there's any other comments, we'll go to a vote. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wagaman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Motion passes. Okay, check register.
Madam President, I move to approve the check
Niall?
register dated
Zickman.
Is now
June
exiting.
10th. Yep, I'm sorry. June 10th, 2020, in the amount of $95,350.08, prepared by Redpath and Company.
A second.
LeBron.
We have a second from Manager Waller. Any further discussion?
No, I just I'm pleased to see that we've issued a check to Jeff Morrell.
Yeah, it looks like we're
Yes.
done. Very good.
Yep.
All right, so we'll call for a vote. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wagaman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Okay, items for discussion. Anything for the engineer? Chris, any updates?
Madam President, I don't really have anything to talk about from our project perspective. I just wanted to mention one third-hand account that I received the other day. My aunt has lived on Long Lake for about 40 years, and she just told my dad the other day that she has never seen the water cleaner on that lake. So I guess that's a kudos to the Watershed District for all the work that you've done to improve water quality out there.
Thank you for
That's
sharing
great
that
to
with us.
hear.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, administrator updates.
Yes, President Preiner, Board of Managers, just a couple items. I'll note that we continue our discussions with Roseville on RCD4 and their hope to put that in a pipe. We're defining the MOA a little bit further here at the staff level, and we'll hope to have that back to you soon. I have a note here, just a little bit to the side. Manager Waller, I think you probably got the cost materials from Smith Partners from Teresa this morning. I did get your phone call. Thank you. And I have some extensive notes here on Pat's reappointment. And I would like to go through those a little bit here. As you know, Pat just took the oath, was reappointed yesterday by the Anoka County Board. I did watch that event because, as you know, we were working with Commissioner Reinhardt to quite an extent. He was newly elected, when the position was vacant and came on board. He had brought to our attention some concerns from a number of communities, and we had met with him and those community representatives along with Pat and Steve, and we had shared that with you, you'll recall, on the May 11th workshop, which led to a special workshop we had on May 26th to kind of look at some of those. The concerns that are being noted fall into two general categories, I'd say. Those things that we're considering or already considering through our normal processes, such as the rule revision that you had scheduled, annual reporting that we do to the state on our costs, et cetera. And then also we brought these up at the city-county partner meeting. The other bucket are issues that I would say are somewhat of a minority opinion, or items that were brought up for consideration by the board as you went through the watershed management plan practice, but didn't get the traction to be included, or at least not in the way that these community thought they should be. And so here we've engaged them a bit, and so they're, so to speak, getting another bite at the apple. So that you have some clarity and understanding, I guess, what they're expressing. So while the board the Anoka County Board did reappoint President Preiner, notably Commissioner Reinhardt did not support that reappointment. And he did make a number of concerning comments, inaccurate comments in my view. And I would certainly encourage each of you, if you haven't, to watch that board meeting. They are recorded just like ours, so we can get you the link, or you will certainly be able to find it on the Anoka County website. So the other board members in Anoka County did show support for President Preiner, obviously, and this board, Rice Creek Board. Obviously, they reappointed her, and that was apparent from the other county commissioners who hold a share of the Rice Creek boundary. We have 3 different county commissioners that are their district overlaps with the Rice Creek boundary. So we heard some good things there. My greatest concern is the concerning statements, the false statements I feel that were made in that dialogue. We appear to have some sort of disconnect here. Manager Reiner characterization of Rice Creek that we were creating an MOU to document and move forward these concerns that he had gathered from these cities and later summarized in an email to myself, Steve, Pat, and the community members that were present. And so he had stated that we were creating this MOU, and in fact we had not. What we did do is respond to that and say that this type of issue is really appropriate at the board level, on both levels, both the county and the Rice Creek Board. And I directed him that we should gauge that level of interest, that the board itself would have to vote, on signing into an MOU, both Rice Creek Board and the county board. And he should do that through President Preiner and have that conversation. As far as I know, that communication never occurred from Commissioner Reinert, but he did follow up from yesterday's county board meeting. He sent another email that I feel, again, we've already addressed at the staff level. It's a rekindling of the previous email that staff had, I responded to, and he set those same elements out into play again. This email was copied to the Anoka County Board Chair, Schulte, and that's the first time that we had an additional, county board member or involved in his emails. So I intend to respond to his email, but I plan to include the entire Anoka County Board so that they see the dialogue that's been occurring to date with Commissioner Reinhardt, and as well as you as the Rice Creek Board. And you will see the previous email. I'll briefly respond, to lead into, we kind of covered this before, and I communicated the need to engage the boards. And here is that previous email for everyone to read. I also believe it's reasonable that any future request that where we have a great deal of staff time or some of these policy level actions come from a consensus of their board or our board on how we move about and through these, so we have good accountability and consistency. Also, I'll be asking to see if the city of Blaine has any concerns, notably within the meeting. You'll hear one commissioner says that she has never received a complaint. I believe that's Commissioner West, and that things appeared good to her. Commissioner Reinert states that he's spoken to Blaine's mayor, and they had quite an extensive conversation, in that they complained a great deal about Rice Creek. So this is inconsistent with my understanding through our staff and our daily interactions with the staff at Blaine. And I feel it's important that we maintain that relationship, from top to bottom. And if there's something on the top side that needs to be addressed, let's get down to it. And so I think it's important to engage them on that. So in bringing this up, I'm looking for your confirmation. I intend to send that email again to both boards, and it simply brings the past communication that I had to all of you. It's not, you'll be aware of it, and it's not a change, if you will, from what I've previously said, communicated. Certainly, after you watch the meeting, if there's things we can you'd like to just discuss further, we can bring that into a workshop, and we can address those comments specifically. and certainly anything that comes back from the Anoka County Board when all of them see this past communication. So I don't think there's anything of a legal or problematic nature. We're just kind of opening the blinds here, get a little bit of sunshine. So all those who have been elected or appointed are seeing the same materials, because obviously your authority and the county's authority derives from them collectively when they take an action as a board and not as individual members. So with that, unless Lewis, if I've said anything that's problematic from a legal standpoint, or any view you have, maybe the board would like to hear that.
Madam President, just a quick comment. I just want to affirm Nick's main point, which is that only the board of either the Anoka County or your watershed district can take action to bind with authority. So I think it is really appropriate to make sure that these communications are daylighted so that all of the members of both bodies are fully aware. And then Nick's approach of continuing to address concerns from cities as they arise, consistent with what you've been doing, can be seen by both bodies.
Yeah, and President Preiner, if I might, board, I just want to be clear that the elements of my communication are things, you know, that you've approved or in alignment with the policies that you've adopted and that sort of thing. So it's nothing where I've gone astray, if you will. It's just communicating what we have on record and looking to be clear about that with our neighbor at the staff level, and then here to elevate it now because it seems of particular concern and potentially some disconnect in communication. So,
Madam President, can I ask how many managers have already seen this? Either were on the meeting or watched the video. I did watch it.
I did.
I did.
This is Steve. I watched it.
Mike or John, did you see it?
No, but I will.
No, I haven't seen it. I have, or any of this communication that they're talking about. I haven't seen any of these emails.
My comment was, I would agree, Nick, that this is now raised to the board level. My understanding of where we've been as a Rice Creek board was incorrectly communicated by the commissioner. I took copious notes also, so we could compare notes if we needed to, but the accusations and the statements need to be clarified and corrected for sure. And I would just say again that this is not a staff, this is no longer one staff to one commissioner correspondent, but board to board. It's now elevated to board discussion.
This is Steve. I agree with you 100%. I think you said exactly what needs to be done and characterized it correctly. There was a lot of misstatements and a lot of accusations and not a very nice tone. I think we need to talk about it for sure.
Well, then let's talk about what kind of procedure we'd like to kind of adopt, maybe for Nick's knowledge too. Do we want to have a workshop and walk through these things and help put together a response as a board? Or do we want Nick to write it and then call us up or have a video meeting and talk about it? Or how fast, in other words, we got this email yesterday and we got to, what do we have, 10 days to respond?
Yes, Commissioner Reiner.
Wait. The email was from one commissioner saying you have 10 days to respond?
Yep.
Wait a minute. Before we go any farther, I guess I'd like to see what the situation is first before we decide about a workshop or the items or an agenda on the workshop. I haven't seen this email. Obviously, some others have. I haven't seen any of these emails. And I think I'd like to have that basis first and then make a determination about workshop or as such. I don't have to, if you intend to respond, Nick, you're welcome to do that. I'd like to see that too, and then see what happens. See, but that's what because I don't have any information about this really background that you're talking about.
Yes, President Preiner, if I might, Manager Waller, Board of Managers, I would generally agree with that direction. Again, I don't know where it will go from here. My email that I intend to send is simply bringing the emails, the past email and the communication up to your level so that everyone is equally informed. Watching the video would be an important component of being fully informed. Manager Waller, I think before you leave today, you could probably watch it there at Rice Creek's office.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. And then from there, you'll either have concern with what is said at the meeting or the content of the email. And likewise, the county board may have concern or not. And if they have concern and they raise it and it comes to me, guess what? I'm bringing it to you. And that's totally appropriate, you know.
I agree. That's totally appropriate. I believe it's you should. This is something you should stay out of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And what I would say is the communications to date, again, are the city's had concerns. I think Commissioner Reinhardt presumably had good intentions to pull us together and speak at a staff level. The people who were at that initial meeting with the county commissioner, as you might recall, were the administrator or the community development representative from those cities. And so it was staff to staff. And again, I spoke and communicated based on the policies and actions that you've taken to date. But I do believe we got to get this into the board's realm and Anoka County board realm.
And Madam President, this is Manager Wagaman. I think we do need, in my opinion, I think we need to have some kind of a conversation at a workshop or something, especially on how we go forward with correspondence, how we're going to do that and have it come from the whole board. I'm not sure exactly how we would do it. I think we need to talk about it and come up with some kind of a process for.
Yeah, President Preiner, if I might, Manager Wagaman, I would agree. As things move away from a staff level conversation and things that are beyond decisions you've made in the past, we need you to decide those policy and procedures that we're switching or adding or subtracting, whatever the case may be. Here, and specifically to the email that Commissioner Reinhardt sent yesterday, he does ask that we respond by 6/23. I believe it's addressed to you, Pat, isn't it? I'm going to look here quick.
I think it was you and I and Commissioner Schulte, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
Commissioner Schulte, yourself and me, and he congratulates you and then asks and so I think we're picking up kind of where we left off. Pat, you'll recall we told him previously when he asked for the MOU that was really a board decision level item and that he should contact you about getting that on the agenda, and he should check in with his board about the gauge the level of interest in such a item. Here he's.
So, excuse me, we're talking about trying to respond to an email that we haven't seen yet. So Can you send that to us? Can you read that? It can't be that long. Maybe it shouldn't be in the public record, because my take on what happened is he went through a long list of a list of items that we as a board have already had a workshop about. We're starting revision. We've already talked about debt forgiveness. Limited tax feasibility may or may not be possible. Duplication of costs, we've talked about that one. The timing of, it seemed to me like we have discussed all this already. And unless he's asking for further information, this should be pretty straightforward. We're working on rules.
Yeah.
We've considered this. So.
Madam
Manager
President,
Bradley, yeah.
This is Bradley.
Go ahead, I'm
So
sorry.
these are topics we've already covered. My suggestion is that Nick prepare a response from Pat, and that you bring that draft response back to us at our next meeting. And then we can see if there's anything we want to massage on it or not massage on it. And then it can be set at our timeline.
So, Madam President,
Go ahead.
so I don't disagree with you, Mike, but I would say that these topics are being discussed. I don't think there's been any action that's been finalized yet. And I think that's a clarity that needs to be pointed out in the letter. It isn't that we looked at these, made a decision and know, and we're moving on. I think we're in the process of still working on this. I think
Exactly.
we just opened the discussion at the last workshop, as I recall, Monday. So I think that's an important point, that we're in the process of beginning to work on this. It should be in your email, Administrator Nick, and signed by the president at the time. I don't want to make it sound like nope, it's all done, we're finished, because I don't think that's proper or the correct description.
And we never said that either. What he was asking for in the last day, which had been last Thursday, I think, it was an MOU, a memorandum of understanding that we were going to fulfill these. And part of my contention is we can't say that because it's a board decision. We're working on them. We all know that. We've told him that in many ways. And all we're doing now, I think when you see the email, you'll see that's just the same issues we already talked about. So it's how we want to proceed, because I would like it to be as a board so we can say, okay, everybody saw this. Is this what you want to respond to the Oka County Board? Several of the commissioners contacted me and wanted to know about this. And I said, and they said they had no idea what the MOU was supposed to be about. They didn't know how it would ever be signed, because it would probably have to be other counties and highway departments, and everybody would have to be involved, which, they're all trying to figure out what's going on with this.
I had the same
I
conversation.
want it to be so that every board members on both boards come to an understanding what we're trying to accomplish. We are going through the steps. We are doing the process. What we want them to understand is I can't tell you what the board is going to vote on 3-4 months from now.
So I want to be very, Madam President, I want to be very clear to say that we're in the process, that this isn't finished.
That's what
I don't want the past tense, like we looked at this and we have moved on. In other words, I want to say we are looking at it.
Intent was, as we've already
That distinction is, I think, is crucial.
Yeah, and we know that, John, because what we have told them is that we're working on it. We have set meetings. We have had discussions. Nothing is done.
Okay.
But I also can't predict the future. I don't know what the board's going to vote.
Madam President, this is Manager Wagaman. One thing, we tried to explain that at that very first meeting, that virtually everything we were talking about, we already had on an agenda that it was already put down to be looked at. We were already looking at almost everything they were talking about. This just speeded things up to a pace that we couldn't possibly do it in, basically. But we did try to explain that at the beginning.
Yeah, we did.
President Preiner, Manager Wagman, I would agree with you that, like I had noted, much of this is in process, not to Manager Waller there. There's not a lot of conclusion there yet. We also noted that we have statutory obligations that we have to follow through that process. And here we are a bit, I'm troubled maybe, or perhaps we're just a little bit stymied in that a lot of attention to a particular comment, which is fine, but then you may have opposing comments or contradicting comments that come to you through the official statutory process. And yet again, you know, the next fold out is each of you represent a different county, or and you bring to it those inputs into the discussion, and there you are shouldered with, you know, your very duty is to discuss and debate these issues and come up what is best for all in light of all those considerations and inputs. You don't, I think, and I'm trying to echo Manager Wagaman in that the Anoka County appointments, Manager Preiner and Manager Wagaman, are 2 of 5, and they might not hold the day in any future vote. And I think to President Preiner's point, she can't bind the board to a future outcome that any particular individual, city, or otherwise is asking for. I will note that while Commissioner Reinhardt started this discussion with a phone call to me, he left a message asking for that MOU, in which I responded and you know, kicked it kind of up the ladder to Pat, are we putting this on the agenda, and that we really need to gauge the level of interest from both boards. He has retracted to some degree now. He's some kind of letter or what have you. So in kind of closing my comments, I think it's important, again, you watch the video, obviously I've seen interest in that. I get this email out to you all, so you see what's been said to date, noting Manager Waller that we not to intend like a conclusion or a closing of the statement. And then you will all see these materials, as well as the county board, the county commissioners individually. And you can have that staff workshop or a special board meeting or whatever you have.
Yeah.
And now I think where we kind of got on this tangent is what did he say in the email and the time frame. Obviously, you'll see that in the response. I think he said June 23rd is when he had hoped for a response. So whether you feel it's important to honor that or how that plays into your dialogue is obviously another issue.
Madam President, Bradley.
Yeah.
So my draft up a letter, Nick, for Pat's signature, bring it to us on our meeting of the 24th.
Yeah.
Respond in the email to Commissioner Reinhardt that the board is going to take up a response to his email on the expected the 24th, and so we expect a response, therefore will be forthcoming.
Yeah.
Okay. President Preiner, Manager Bradley, I don't take to issue the letter. Content is a little bit eluding me. It could be quite simple. You know, I can simply say the board will consider this.
Madam President, so John Waller hit it actually on the head, as he frequently does. He said, you take each item, you say, for example, the debt release. So we have considered this. The board's current suggestion is that we will send a letter to each of the cities that have a debt or a credit, and those who want forgiveness may petition us for why they think forgiveness would be appropriate. I mean, this is something we've done.
Mhm.
We
Yep.
haven't executed on it maybe yet, but this is something that's done. And you can go through these things and say, this is where we are with regard to MS4. We've had a workshop on identifying overlap between our rules and MS4, and we've decided that our rules are good, but we're working with the Mark Stoltz here. You don't have to name him personally, but you can city whatever administrator to see if there are ways that we could cooperatively reduce the duplicative costs of administering these stuff. I mean, these are things you can put there. These are things we've done. We aren't done yet, but it's where we are.
Yes, I would emphasize the beginning of this, and I would put it a little differently here, Manager Mike. I'd say he wants a response in 10 days or so. Send him a response saying the Board of Commissioners is going to formally respond to you on their meeting on was it the 24th? Our meeting is
Correct.
yeah, on the 24th. That's about all you can do then, and then at the 24th. We'll go through and look at where we are and give a more definite and defined answers as to what it is. That's how I'd approach this. And that will give us as managers an opportunity to, one, review the meeting, and two, review the emails and kind of get our feet under the, as to what is going on. So.
Okay.
That's what I would do. You have an objection to that, Mike?
No, that was exactly what I was proposing.
Yeah,
I
that's
wasn't
what I
saying
thought,
that,
yeah.
I wasn't saying that the next email would do anything more,
Okay.
anything other than we've received
Right.
your email. The
Okay.
board has decided it wants to respond as a board to this. They've set this item tentatively on their schedule for the 24th. Have a good day.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what I just want to make sure I was clear in understanding what you were proposing. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, that's exactly what we talked about.
Right. And go ahead, Nick.
Thank you, President Preiner. Board of Managers, no issue with that. We can certainly draft a letter that for your consideration on the 24th. I would ask that you think about in my response email the disclosure of the communications to date. And I know you'd like to see those. I think it's important for that county board to see those as well. And I can formulate the response email to say, this was our past communication on that. The board will look at this as well as whatever relevant materials you want to look at, and may respond in alignment or what have you. Wait for the letter, action on the 24th.
And just to clarify, you're sending that email to the Anoka County, or copying that email to the Anoka County Commissioners and to the Rice Creek Board of Managers.
Yes.
That would be my intent.
Yes.
President Preiner, Board of Managers, yes. I think that's appropriate in that many of you are like, what's going on and what's the information? And I think we saw that. You'll see that when you watch the video at the county website, that there was some disconnect in their discussion there about activities that were going on. So,
Madam President, this is Manager Wagaman. I do want to emphasize, I do still think we need at some point here some kind of a workshop or something to discuss this, because I think part of the discussion has to be, I think we have to find out somehow what the whole county board wants also. There seems, when I watch that, there seems to be a disconnect between one of the commissioners and the rest of the commissioners. They seem quite confused on what an MOU who would be signing and all that kind of stuff. And I think going forward, we need to talk about how, maybe how they want to be involved in this. how much the county board does want to be involved or oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think we need to sit and talk about it. There are some deeper issues there than just this conversation.
I can tell you, I was contacted by the board chair yesterday afternoon, and we did discuss how he'd like it handled. And he said, please copy their board on everything that we want, every communication.
Okay.
So he said, just let them know exactly what everybody is saying so that they can make better decisions, because they were caught off guard too.
Yeah.
So.
President
So yes,
Pryor?
that's the truth, but I do think I would like to see it in more of a, maybe we could have a half-hour workshop and then start our board meeting or something like that. So we
Yeah.
can clarify everything with everybody once you've seen all the information,
Yeah,
That's fine.
if that
So
works.
Madam Chair, another procedural question. Workshops are recorded, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
President Pryor, Board of Managers, I'll just add, and I'm looking to Lewis a little bit here, both are public meetings, both are, you know, open to the public and notes are taken, et cetera. I don't know that the statutory basis makes the distinction that in the way that we utilize a workshop. It's a little more informal and dealing with the nuts and bolts, if you will. But both are in the public realm. Did I have that right, Lewis?
Yes, Madam President. My recollection is that some time ago, the Board of Managers decided that you would have these study sessions in a workshop setting, that you would not record those meetings. The recordings of your regular meetings are first and foremost for the purpose of keeping a record for the preparation of minutes, to record your actions that you vote on. To my knowledge, your continued practice follows that framework, and that's perfectly within the statutory requirements.
So workshops do
President
not,
Pryor,
Wait a minute, was that Teresa? Or who was?
so workshops do not have to be recorded?
But we do. It's a policy matter.
Okay.
Okay, Nick, sorry.
yes, in a point of clarification, I think there's a statute and the requirements, Lewis, and so the fact that the board does not take action, if you will, at a workshop is not a statutory matter. They could actually take action at a workshop. It's a convening of the board as an authority. It's just that we have practically chosen not to do that.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Both are, your regular meetings and your workshops are meetings that are subject to the general requirements of the open meeting law, meaning they need to be noticed and open to the public. It's how you decide to characterize your business, much like city councils have study sessions and regular business meetings.
Well, why don't we get the materials out, and I say come back to at least a half-hour workshop before our regular meeting, and then we'll proceed with a letter after that. I think, Nick, if you respond that we are bringing it to the board, I think that'd be appropriate. And, you know, we can send that off in a simple form, that we can't be date certain on when he will receive the materials.
Yeah. Okay.
Madam Chair, I have one other clarification here. As the request for an MOU from an individual commissioner, the board basically had confusion about what the MOU is.
Yes.
There must be some understanding between each of the 3 counties that are within the watershed and the watershed district that's already in place. So if it's an MOU or it's a contract or it's just some statutory language, that we're already doing what is requested by the commissioner. So I think there, from what I picked up from the county board here in the county board meeting, the relationship between the counties and the watershed districts appeared to be a little unclear. So also for workshop purposes or just general information, it might be good for us and the board and the county boards to understand what that relationship is. Because you will hear repeatedly about one unit of government being able to impose regulations on another, and who's little and who's big. So some of these are a misunderstanding or a lack of understanding about how the relationship between the Watershed District and the county actually.
Yeah.
I'd
Madam,
like to ask Louis a quick question, maybe.
Uh,
I guess my thoughts when I was listening to this is, I don't know where the MOU thing came from, but we already have certain authorities given to us by the state. And because we don't have an MOU with Columbus or Forest Lake or anybody else, any other entities, because we're all under the same rules of the state.
Yeah.
So I don't see where MOU would even come into this situation. And maybe I'm really missing something, but
Yeah.
no,
it just doesn't make sense to me.
but
President Briner, Board of Managers, and then maybe Louis to correct me if I'm all wrong, but the municipalities, the county,
Yeah.
watershed districts, each have their own statutory authorities. We are a special unit of government. You are tasked with some specific duties to carry those out. And just as you'll see in the meeting, communications between cities and counties, watershed districts and the municipalities or the counties all come into that arena of exercising our authorities and trying to accomplish our goals through in our duties. So I don't think that's something that will be dispelled. That's just the landscape that we kind of work in accomplishing that. And I think the district does a really good job. Our city county partner meetings, we have, there were 3 cities that expressed some level of concern, and you have 25 others that did not. And so we want to make sure we're, as a board, you're balancing all those inputs and interests again.
and Madam President, oh, I'm sorry, Nick, I thought you were done. I apologize.
No, no problem, Manager Wagman. I was just I don't think I said anything that was wrong, but if Louis has a correction there, that's all.
Go ahead, Lois, and then we'll go to Steve.
Okay.
Yes, President Priner, managers, I don't object to what Nick framed. I would say that, just for your reference, the discussion with the Anoka County Commissioner, as I understand it, and the participating cities, it's been a broad-ranging discussion touching on a number of issues that you've been addressing in your workshops and in your planning processes in a variety of forums and settings. Typically, a memorandum of understanding, which is a non-binding document, not legally binding, is undertaken when there's a particular kind of initiative or project that involves 2 or more parties, and you just want to be clear on what the roles of all the parties are as they're going to go through this process. You often also, as you know, have cooperative agreements with your member cities or other entities when you have a specific project and you want to be clear about roles and responsibilities and commitments. I think that this kind of broad-ranging discussion with a number of different parties, if you get to a specific understanding with one city about sharing inspection roles and responsibilities for erosion control, that could be a specific kind of document. But I think otherwise, if this is a difficult, broad-ranging set of issues to deal with in something like an MOU.
So,
Steve?
Madam
sorry.
President, just
Sorry,
draft-
Mike.
draft-
Steve had a comment
Okay.
first. If you,
Thank you, Steve.
Yes, my biggest concern from that meeting was the fact that there seemed to be a difference of opinion on the authority of the county over the Watershed Board. A chair said that their authority was just to appoint the managers. That's their job. And our oversights by Bowser, and the one Commissioner Reinhardt, did not agree with that. He thought that the county had oversight authority over the watershed. And he gave his reasons why. I don't have to go into them, but I think that's a big deal. I mean, we have to find out from the county board what they really do think their authority is. I mean, it sounded to me like the other ones think that they just appoint, but I mean, there is a disconnect there because he did not agree, and he is of the opinion that they have authority or oversight authority over the watershed. And I think that's something that has to be straightened out one way or another.
So, Madam President, that's what I think is that as you're drafting and considering a draft, Nick, and probably Lewis, of a response to this thing, there could be a portion of that letter could be, we don't work individually with individual counties or individual commissioners. Our MOU, if you will, is our water management plan. We have that in place. We've adopted that. That sort of thing.
So, Madam President, I'm listening to the discussion now. I think, you know, the words memorandum of understanding have a legal definition to them. And maybe what's the issue here is a communication understanding of where authority for the watershed district takes place and where the authority of the county and city municipal ordinances are in place. And I would say a choice of the use of the word memorandum of understanding may be a novice application of that communication is trying to determine the boundaries of authority. And so I guess I wouldn't get too hung up on that memorandum of understanding term, and rather it seems to be a question of where does the watershed district have authority and where do the city and county municipal ordinances or rules have authority. And so I think that's a question that needs to be kind of worked out yet. And it's a question that we have been discussing, and I don't think we've come to a conclusion ourselves yet.
Right, and we're only using that because that was brought forward by Manager Reinhardt.
Yeah, I understand that. Sometimes getting hung up on specific words that may not have been, it's the idea behind it, not necessarily the actual depth documentation of it under the format of a memorandum of understanding, which is a legal document, right, as Lewis has defined. And really what we're talking about here is how to determine who, if the watershed district has authority to do this or that, or does the city have this authority? If you have similar authorities overlapping, as you might say, what are the responsibilities of each party? Is one party's rule superior to the other party's rule? Not necessarily, or is it? You know, those are the questions that you're really getting down to asking here. But anyways, I'm for sending a short email saying that we'll talk about this on later and have a workshop on it once we have all had an opportunity to study the communication threads and chains that have taken place and have a better understanding of what's going on.
Nick, could I say too, in that, then there should be also the conversation you had with Commissioner Reinhardt. That should be encapsulated somehow, because I believe that was a conversation, not an email at that point.
Yes. President Briner, to that, yeah, we have our my response email on the specific items that were brought forth. That email, and then the other email, which I believe captures it, is I note our discussion and I say, I understand you're looking at an MOU, and I kick it back to you, you know, to bring to the board. Yeah. I think that covers it. To President Briner, Manager Waller, to your point, I would agree. Words here certainly matter, and especially when they're put to paper. I think you referenced perhaps a novice use of the word or the term or the vehicle MOU. I don't know that to be the case, but as Pat said, that is what was brought to us. It would, but I would agree with you that in his most recent communication, which you will see, he's retracted to a letter. Continued intent, I think, to address these issues is what he was asking for, which moves quite a ways from that MOU position, and I'll let you take it at face value and decide what you think about it, but we will get those out to you. Beyond that, did I understand correctly then on June 24th, you'll have a workshop from 8:30 to 9. Then you will take maybe a brief break and reconvene as a regular board meeting. I don't know if the distinction is necessary or what have you, but as you wish.
Louis, is there any reason to just, or start our meeting early, or what do you think? Or just start at 9 and discuss all of this throughout the meeting?
Yeah,
Or-
I think the latter makes sense.
Just start regular meeting and then put this at the top of the agenda.
Sure.
All right, well, then we can do it that way. That's fine too.
Okay, 9 a.m. and then we'll just have an action item and I'll work, I heard someone say work with Smith Partners and we will draft some language for you to consider about endorsing to bridge the gap. The only note I'll make is obviously in this interim time here, once these emails go out and such, you'll certainly be more informed and perhaps the county board, based on their meeting schedule, might come back and say something as well or not, and we'll have to mold that into the letter or deal with it at that time.
So, Madam President,
Yes.
if there's some communication between the administrator and the attorneys here, I'd like to see the rest of us see that in time instead of having it presented to us or not presented to us at the meeting on the 24th. And that's that kind of discussion that goes back and forth between these. I'd like to hear what's being talked about. Because remember, we've elevated this to board, not administrator to lawyer to them. So we need to have that kind of background.
Yeah.
Madam
President,
President, I do not agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't think we should start standing in between the daily workings of our staff and our lawyers, and that when they have a product, because I've worked in this area, you know, I might do 5 drafts, and no, you get to see my final draft.
I agree with you.
And also we would have Louis online the day of the discussion, so we can dig into it further if there's something that day.
Well, you know, it's like having a workshop. You have a lot of discussion in there in the workshop and you have an idea of what's going on here. And this is a discussion, and the letter is going to be presented to you or to the board, and we're going to be we're not really involved in the formation of it except at the last yes or no get go about it. And so I guess you missed the thinking behind it of why it was conformed this way or what was going on in the background, which was something you'd have in a workshop regularly, but so be it. We'll move on.
President Preiner, I'll just note that that's our purpose in bringing it to you. Any particular sentence or content you wish to question or understand, I guess the basis, if you will, is open to input or adjustment as the board sees fit, and that would be, you know, your discussion under potential action. Yeah, I don't intend to hide anything from you.
Okay, so the next steps for sure is we'll get a quick letter out to reply, and then you'll get all the materials to all of us the same. I make sure that I'm just included as one of the members.
Yep.
And then from there, we'll have that discussion at our regular meeting and formulate our response.
Yes. If I could reflect that back just to make sure we have a mutual understanding, I will be sending an email That email will go to all county commissioners, all managers of the Rice Creek Board, all Anoka County commissioners, I should say. And it will include the past 2 emails, communications that were sent, so you can see those. It will include a statement of the board's intent to look further at this in a potential formal communication. They will do that on June 24th as a part of their regular business. And the content, or again, like I said, potential, if a letter will be sent or not, remains to be seen. But I understand your intent is to send something, but I don't want to necessarily bind you because, again, we don't know what may happen in the interim, and we might be better informed at that future date of our next step. Did I get it right?
Everybody concur? Any other thoughts on this?
The only note I'll make for your convenience, or I would ask Teresa, who I believe is present here on the line and such, could you send the email out once you find it on the website with a link? And I'll note here, I have note that it starts at minute 54:07 and goes to 1:34. And then because you'll look it up here for Manager Waller and then send that out, and please copy me, and we'll know that we connected the loop there, and I'll work with Teresa to make sure that happens.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this? Okay, we're going to go to managers updates. Manager Waller?
Well, yes, I did have a couple of things to note. I attended the Washington County Consortium meeting last Wednesday. A couple of interesting things. There were 2 speakers, Angie Hong, who's the communications person for Washington counties, all of Washington counties, watershed districts generally. And she said 1 pound of phosphorus creates 500 pounds of algae in a lake. I thought that was an interesting statistic to keep in mind. That's by removing 1 pound of phosphorus, she's inferring that you also remove possibilities of 500 pounds of algae growth. The second speaker that day was a fellow from the Department of Natural Resources, and he had an interesting statistic also. His background was that he was worked on the cities in determining values of properties and such and things like that. And so he said that a change in lake quality, an elevation of it, can have a 20% increase in the value of riparian shore owners' homes. Imagine that. So then I was thinking about that during my little later on. I own a small home. It's 28 by 25 square feet, 713 individual feet upstairs, an unfinished basement. I have a 10-acre lot, and I pay about what's considered to be the average tax in the Watershed district, about $50 a year. But I'm sure any lake home would be at least twice the valuation of mine. And I'm just going to pick out a figure that lake homes are generally around $500,000. And so over a 10-year period, I would pay, or most of us would average to pay $500 in tax to the Watershed district. That's the only portion of the tax I'm talking about. And a lake homeowner would pay more than that, based on the evaluation, probably be $100. And even if you made it $200 in 10 years, it's $2,000. And when you have a $500,000 property and the lake quality is brought up to very good quality, and you get a 20% return, that's like $100,000 on a $500,000 home. So for a $2,000 10-year investment in taxes, you received a $98,000 increase in property value. That's a tremendous return on investment. So it makes me, when I visit other places like in Hugo, for example, and you see some of these 26-acre, 30-foot deep stormwater ponds, that water quality in those ponds is just as important to the value of those folks' homes also. And so that, Tom Schmidt has talked about, these ponds been around for 30 years and we need to start to work on them. And there's this discussion that we've had at the workshop last week about where the authority is for MS4 and water quality is not just the drainage ditches, but also beyond the drainage ditch boundaries. And these ponds are beyond that boundaries. When you have a 26 acre, and there's many of these 20 larger ones being formed here, there's several of them in Hugo now that are great ponds that water quality and they're paying for, those folks are paying, and we haven't had a program here for the maintenance of this. And that gets back to one of my very long, and probably people are tired of me hearing talking about the continued need for the district to provide maintenance for the mandates that the district makes. The district makes mandates on water quality, rate control, volume control, and the maintenance of these facilities and how that's necessary. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. I did enjoy last night, Nick, listening to your presentation. You did a very good job. I enjoyed listening to the climatologist also. And so I was a little bit disappointed in that I thought only one entity of government had been left out of that that's a player in this. I don't know how significant they are, but they certainly are the oldest player, the St. Paul Water Authority. They're right in the center of that business in Vadnais Heights. And, they are the oldest authority there before watershed districts or water management organizations or the Department of Natural Resources, predecessor of the Drainage Department. I mean, they're from the 1860s and 70s. I don't know what, but they used to take a lot of surface water, and that's what this complaint's about. It's too much surface water, and they don't anymore. They go to the Mississippi River, and the impact of that can be, for example, in Columbus, when the water authority came in and raised the dam height down at Peltier. I personally believe, don't have any credentials behind my name to prove it, but I believe that backed that water up all through those muck soils 5-6 miles north, and has impact on a lot of people's properties. And but it's a complicated deal because the water authority doesn't draw down these lakes any longer. In Vadnais Heights and such, you can actually go in there. It used to be when I was a child, they had big fences around with threatening signs about jail time and fines if you were in there. And now you can do that. And then I guess the final thing is that, we'll keep on working on these things. Right at the moment, it skips me by the last one. I didn't write it down, so. I got so involved in writing so many things down here, you stopped me. I was making up my list of things to talk about.
Okay, thank you. Manager Winan, any comments or updates, I should say?
Well, thank you. I also was on the flooding meeting yesterday. That ended my day, and I did watch, as I said, the Anoka County Commissioners meeting, and yeah, I miss seeing you guys face to face because I think you probably lost a lot in the discussion about that particular meeting. But I'm hanging in there, so nothing else to report.
Okay,
so,
thank you.
Madam President, thank you, Marcy, for reminding me what the last item was. Down in Valley Creek in Washington County, they are having a tremendous flooding problem down there. I don't know if it's a half a dozen homes at least that maybe have to be bought out. These homes have been there over 100 years, and they just have a tremendous amount of, one home is pumping 1,000 gallons of water out of the basement every day. And so they bought out 4 homes. So this business about flooding isn't exclusive to, it seems to be a wider spread problem. That's the last thing I have.
Thank you. Manager Bradley, Any updates?
Yeah, well, I make the another person who was at the meeting last night, and again, Nick, congratulations on a good job. And as we mentioned before we started, found out that Phil Belfiore is now the administrator at Venice Lake Area Water Management Organization. The reason for yesterday night's meeting was they have flooding problems around that in Snail Lake, Grass Lake, Rice Street, all areas, thankfully, not in our district. So for once, we dodged that one. But of
So
course,
that's the
we have
good
our-
news,
We have
huh?
our own flooding issues in Ramsey County, and we're talking about $20 million to fix that. So, but it was
That
a
is good
meeting.
news.
So
Ooh.
that's it. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Manager Wageman, any updates?
I have nothing today.
Okay, and I have nothing. So with that, we'll go ahead and I'll need a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn, Madam President. Waller.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Winant,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wageman,
Yeah.
and Manager Priner, yes. Okay, thank you.
Congratulations, Pat.
Hey, thank
Yeah.
you.
Congratulations and see everybody later.
We're back at it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Yeah.